Hi there, Steve here. If you're interested in language learning, please subscribe to my channel. I have another channel where I talk about politics, and both of these channels, the videos, the audio, the transcript, are available as lessons at link. Please check in the description box. Today I want to talk about output because I had a question from one of my viewers about Swain's output theory or hypothesis. So I looked that up, and because I wasn't aware of it. And basically what Swain says is that we learn from output because output enables us to identify our gaps between what we want to say and what we're able to say. Second of all, output has a hypothesis testing function. When a learner says something, there is a tacit hypothesis underlying his utterances about grammar. In other words, we test whether we know the grammar. It's kind of like the same as finding our gaps. I don't quite see the difference. And the third thing is a metalinguistic function. Learners reflect on the language they learn, and thereby the output enables them to control and internalize linguistic knowledge. To me, it's all the same. Yeah, we need output. And the issue with output to me is it's a question of how much output when. And traditional language instruction puts a lot of emphasis on output and correct output at an early stage. Teacher teaches something and you've got to reproduce it and produce it correctly. And I think that's wrong because my experience has been that until I've had a lot of the language brought into me, that it's very difficult to remember things. It's very difficult to get the structure right. And so a very minimal amount of output in the initial stages is enough. Besides which, output at the initial stage can be quite stressful because you can't say anything. Long silences, you comment on the weather over and over again. And the other thing is, any output implies an engagement with someone. So you can't just output without having a conversation coming back at you. And if you don't understand what's being said, you can't have a meaningful conversation. So for those reasons, I'm not a big fan of speaking at an early stage. And the fact is that input, reading and listening and paying attention, is so powerful as a way of ingesting, getting the language in you, learning. It's faster, in my opinion, than speaking, because at an early stage, if all the words you are using are the words that you are able to use, you are going to have a very limited amount of the language that you are engaging with. Whereas with listening and reading, you can engage with much more of the language, and it's easier to organize and carry with you and so forth and so on. But at a certain point, for sure you need to speak, and you need to speak a lot. And when you do speak later on, you do identify your gaps. You see which structures you aren't able to use, which words you aren't able to find. So this is extremely valuable. However, I would say the language density and the intensity and the quantity of words, etc., that you deal with when you are engaged in meaningful input and listening to and reading things of interest is much greater than what you can do in an output exercise. So I have conversations. I spoke Czech for an hour yesterday. I spoke Russian for an hour today. And I think that, a few hours a week is of output. In other words, conversation is plenty. Then I receive my report from my link tutor. I go over the words that I had trouble with. And all of this helps me to notice things in my listening and reading. But if I have, say, in a given language, call it either Czech or Russian or Polish, whatever, if I have a couple of hours per week of output, that's enough. But I might have a couple of hours or an hour to 2 hours a day of input activity, and I think that's that's the biggest part of my learning. And eventually, as I progress, obviously I want to do more and more output. And if I had the opportunity to travel to the country where the language is spoken, then I could spend a lot more time with output. So output is important. Swain's hypothesis kind of splits hairs in a way. But still, input over output, input before output, input more than output. That's my take on it. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.